Hello, hello, and welcome. It is World Oceans Day, and we are so excited to be here with you. Riley is live from the Salish Center right on Lego Bay. I think Larry's in Seattle at Pike Place Chowder, and I'm on the East Coast in New York, but we're all together, united for World Oceans Day. So, how you doing, gents?
Terrific. How about you, Rachel?
Pretty good. We've got so many celebrations this month. We've got Orca Month all throughout the month of June. We had World Environment Day this week, and now here we are on World Oceans Day. So lots to celebrate,
Plenty to
Yeah,
celebrate, absolutely.
and a time
yeah.
for action.
I'm sitting here on Lego Bay, which is technically not on the ocean; it's on the Salish Sea. Um, but the fact is that the water from right out here every 8 days travels from Straits of Juan de Fuca to Desolation Sound and out into the ocean. So it's connected inexorably to the Pacific Ocean.
What is it that makes that body of water particularly special when it comes to regenerative aquaculture, not agriculture? What is it about the body of water of the Salish Sea particularly that's special?
Just what I said, that it refreshes itself so quickly. In the lower sound, Puget Sound, most people know, it's a bit of a dead end. So it comes in the Straits of Juan de Fuca and it goes down all the way down to Olympia, and then it has to turn around and come back. So you have a lot of dead spots and a lot of aggregation of whatever uh, civilization manages to pour into the seawater. Um, but here it's particularly good for sea life, especially Larry and I have a seaweed farm um, that's within uh, the immediate vision of this place.
Yeah, you're gazing upon it, actually.
Yeah, it's not in the water right now because we harvested, but it'll go back in December. But it's some of the cleanest uh, sugar kelp in the world.
That's incredible. And for folks who are perhaps local to the area and maybe looking for a little bit more in-depth information about what makes the Salish Sea so special for its inhabitants, like let's talk a little bit about the wildlife that's there. And obviously, we're united to save the southern resident orcas, but there's a lot of other species there that are special too. Can you, as somebody who's been on the Salish Sea for several decades, can you talk to us a little bit more about the ecosystem there?
Well, it's a vibrant, thriving ecosystem. The the Dungeness crab population has tripled since the 1970s and 80s. The halibut population is went from zero to a reasonable harvest every year commercially. Um, and the spot prawn population is just really thriving. It's just really good.
It's amazing.
Then you also have clams, mussels, oysters, and everything in there that both farmed and wild that are flourishing in the waters there.
And
Yeah,
Larry,
yeah, it's what they say, the Lummi Nation, the tribal people across Hales Pass from us. They say when the tide goes out, the table is set.
mm, wow. And this region has been particularly special to both of you for quite some time. We talked a lot in the last session about kind of the needs for habitat restoration. What are some other things that we really want to kind of address on World Ocean Day? And one of the things that came to mind for me was whale watching tours and how damaging they can be for the southern residents. But anything else on kind of the waterways that we're seeing that we could really bring to people and inspire some action?
Well, one thing, it's funny. I was just thinking about it this morning. Back 20 years ago, when I owned the Willows, we could see southern resident orcas from our deck, just you know, just hunting for food, swimming along. No boats watching them, nothing. And since the salmon have been getting sparser and sparser, we don't really see them as much, not hardly near shore anymore. And when we do see them, they're spread out. Uh, there's not enough salmon for them to hunt in packs, so they all take their own space and hunt more or less individually.
Hmm.
And I'm right here where I'm standing. In May and June, we could see orcas all the time. I mean, I would say once a week minimum. And yet now you don't see them.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I would say that is the loss of the salmon population that was flourishing there for millennia, and the southern resident orca, who's the apex predator of the region, is what they feed on, and particularly Chinook salmon. But there's a lot of things that have occurred since we invaded the area with European settlers that has changed all of that, and a lot of it is unrelated specifically to the waters of the Salish Sea, but it's the tributaries and the rivers and the streams that migratory salmon have to get to in order to regenerate themselves through their natal spawning grounds. A lot of them are blocked because of dams that have been created, and there are salmon farms that have been created up in Canada. They have them in Washington as well, but they a few years ago decided that they needed to go away. But those two things alone create all sorts of problems for the wild salmon population, and you combine those things with the amount of, well, in the years ago, PCBs were used for essentially poison to eradicate some of the issues we had to help the human population. But in doing so, it got into the orca skin and into their bodies, and the baby orcas that are born they want milk. Well, that milk has PCBs in it, and in this day and age, causing them to die of this, and they die of starvation because of the lack of salmon. But if we were to eliminate some of this stuff, you could look at our history here. About 15 years ago, they tore down a couple of dams on the Elwha River. That salmon population has returned to that river and returned in huge numbers. They took down several of the most important salmon farms up in British Columbia. Riley will tell you that last year was a record year for pink salmon return to the region. Those are the kinds of things and major steps that are necessary in order for the region to regenerate itself. And the salmon population is a big part of that. And the poster child for that is really the southern resident orcas, because they have been here for millennia, and that is their source of food. And we can all win if the orcas win.
We're talking about a hyper-local issue here, but it is a canary in the coal mine for
Yes.
the rest of the world, for ocean ecosystems the world over, when you have an apex predator at the top of the food chain that is now officially on the endangered species list. Is there anything that comes to mind for the two of you when we think about where action has actually prevailed and humans are stepping up to the plate to take action to resolve some of these issues? Is there anything that comes to mind for you?
Well, the dams coming off of the Elwha River are certainly a part of that. And they recently are starting to tear dams on the Klamath River that run into Northern California. It's an Oregon, a river that starts in Oregon but empties into the Pacific in Northern California, those are huge steps to bring salmon back to the region. And this last year they also eliminated the ocean fishing for king salmon or Chinook salmon in Alaska for one season, just to see what happened, and that allowed the Chinook to return to the waters where they were from, which is Oregon, Washington, and British Columbia. Ocean open, but they need to change that, and somehow in the future, I know that there's lawsuits here and there that are trying to resolve that, but those are things that can certainly help to take care of that. Riley's reef net fisherman, that's a solution in and of itself.
Riley, will you give us the DL on the download? Sorry, I'm using techie speak here. On why reef netting is not only a sustainable form of fishing, but it's also been recently touted as being a regenerative form of fishing. So let's explore that, because people sometimes have a hard time connecting the dots of like, well, why are we fishing if overfishing is part of the problem?
Yeah, it's an oxymoron in a way to a lot of people. But the fact is that the salmon fisheries on most of the Fraser River, which is in Canada, but historically it's the largest single sockeye salmon river in the world, and it's a huge producer. But now we're sort of in a fragile state on the Salish Sea, where we've got a big enough population surrounding it, and we've kind of, I don't like to say overfished, but the truth is we sort of have overfished the salmon population, so that now there's no way back if we destroy a single run. Whereas in Alaska, where there are very few people, you could literally destroy a year class in a river, and there's enough older, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-olds to come into the vacuum and recreate that run. So, but here it's not that way. Everything's a 4-year fish, and without exception, except for the pink salmon, which is a 2-year fish. And it's kind of getting into the weeds a little bit, but we can't here in the Salish Sea get by anymore with sending out commercial fishing vessels that are not selective, because salmon swim together. Chinooks swim with coho, swim with sockeye, swim with pinks. So you're going to catch several different species every time you fish. And reef net fishing is the only one that can catch all those and then release unharmed anything we're not allowed to take or we want to protect. So there just isn't another gear type that can do that. And reef net fishermen have been marginalized forever because we're a small fleet and we didn't have any power. But the handwriting is on the wall now, and it's just time now for the public and fisheries managers to realize that we've got to be selective, or we're going to lose entire runs.
And those fishing methods are gill netting and purse-seining and those sorts of things. If you hear about those are non-selective fishing practices that don't allow the selective catch that can be done with reef net fishing.
Which is fine in Alaska. Like I said, you can do a little damage to a fragile run, but not have to worry as much. But here, if you seriously do damage enough to a run, it will disappear and it will never come back. Never.
Let's talk about action. I think sometimes you can on our last call we talked about this being $100 million problem, like just to kind of make a dent in this, and it can feel quite overwhelming to people They think, well, what's the point? I can't, as one individual, make a difference. But what are some like tangible things that we can implore people to do right now to try to move this needle forward?
One thing I could think of is to come to our ReefNet Festival every August on Lummi Island and see for yourself what the ReefNet boats look like, how they fish, what the water looks like here. We have live bands and amazing food, beer and wine garden, but also we have a charter boat that takes people out to actually see the gears out on the water. And there's something about that direct contact. It's no longer a theory. You can see it. You can watch it. You can touch it. You can smell it. And it has a bigger chance of getting into your body and then getting into your brain and your mind. And that's what we need. We need people to realize that this is not a problem you wring your hands about and then you go back to the rest of your life. This is existential. We're at the place where it's existential, and similar to what we've got going with global warming, it goes hand in hand with what's going on with the Salish Sea and the apex predator.
You could also join our Wave Warriors program, which provides you the opportunity to meet and greet the remaining 7 southern resident orcas. We have portraits that have been created of each of those creatures, and in doing so, you'll help to raise money to help us do the work that's necessary in habitat protection, habitat restoration, and to work, hopefully if we can raise enough money, we would like to be able to work politically regarding, dam removal, or at least passageways for salmon to make it past these impediments to their livelihood. And it's an easy way to do it, and it's not terribly expensive. It's I think it's $20, isn't it? $20 a month that will get you in the Wave Warriors program, and you can then get to know these wonderful sea creatures, the southern resident orcas.
Yeah.
Who's that? Who's that on your shirt there, Larry?
This would be Muncher, L-Pod Muncher, L91.
So why? So why do you have that on your shirt? And also, who in the world named it Muncher?
I'm sorry?
Who named it Muncher?
It was a world,
this particular whale.
It was the Center for Whale Research that did the naming of the whales.
So every whale, every southern resident orca has a name and a number.
A name and a number. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So if we get to know our orcas, there's only 74. It's not very many to get to know. Then we'll start to care for them, and when we care for them, we will do the right things to enable them to thrive. That's a very simple call to action. Very simple thing that people can do to make a difference.
And I think it's worth just kind of talking a little bit about our attempt to connect, especially young people, young future eco stewards, to those individual orcas. And we're having a little fun with kind of building lore and story around them, because we want to create a children's education series that really enchants children and brings them into this ecosystem and inspires them to want to do this throughout their adult life. And we've commissioned not only a great artist to create the 74 portraits, but we also have some beautiful stories as well that we're going to be sharing with kids. So definitely, looking at ways that we can really get young people excited. But the reason that we decided to take that approach was something that you shared, Riley, in one of our meetings about that age of 9 to 10 and how kind of impressionable you are and how you're kind of getting your beliefs and your value system around that age. Can you just kind of tell people that story?
Yeah. I remember, I'm 74, but I still remember what it was like to be 9 and 10. And it's a time of hope and awe in children, and they want to do something good. They care, and if they're told about things about the way the world is during that age, they can carry that with them all their lives. I know one of the Rob Williams, one of the scientists that we work with in Oceans Initiative, he shared that he remembers his fifth grade teacher introducing him to southern resident orca whales, and it made him want to be a biologist, a marine biologist, studying the orcas, which he has done all of his life. So that that can have that effect on children, and it's just worth pursuing and making the information and the experience available to children of that age.
And if I could add, Rachel, you brought up this project being a $100 million project, which isn't going to happen tomorrow. But if we can educate these kids at the age of 9 and 10 years old, they are the future. They're the ones who can make to transform things. And the article I wrote was about 20 to 30 years from now, all of the things that we seem to absolutely need right now may not even be necessary. For example, we got 31 dams on the Columbia River to help create hydroelectric power. Well, given all of it's being done in creating renewable energy, is it even necessary for these dams to even exist? Do we need these salmon farms up in British Columbia? But to get rid of the salmon farms, you're going to have to create an opportunity for the people who are the salmon farmers up there to do something different, potentially reef net fishing. Part of back to the dams also create irrigation for the farms in central Washington that create these actually wonderful farms out there. We can't just simply take that away. You've got to provide some means of them continuing their livelihood in some manner. And we could do that. They're currently recycling water in Arizona for this purpose. You could certainly recycle the waters from the Columbia River to resolve the same issue. A lot of the original stuff that happened here was due to clear cutting the forests. Well, we've solved that problem to a large degree because most of the forest areas are being replanted, and many of them are well on their way. So it's these sorts of things, and educating these kids at the age of 9 and 10 years old, when they're adults, if we can keep them focused and keep them interested in their own environment, a lot of these problems will be solved. And in doing so, they'll resolve the issues we have with the salmon population, and the southern resident orcas will flourish.
So we have some pretty big goals ahead of us. We know that $20 a month Wave Warrior Club is not going to move the needle too much, but what we hope with that club is, it's accessible, and it's going to be a place where you can gain education. You can connect young people in your life with the lore and the story and the science around what's actually happening here, so that they actually become future eco stewards. But we will be also applying for grants, and we do welcome donations. And some of the plans that we have is to support the likes of Oceans Initiative with micro grants for scientific research. So with your support, we'll be able to do that. We're also looking to, in 2025, fund at least one seasonal scholarship for a reef netter. And if we do really, really well, we want to build some more reef nets so that we can actually empower the next generation of reef net fisher people as well. Gents, any other thoughts, or perhaps any elaboration on like the seaweed and what we're kind of hoping for with that?
Well, regarding the seaweed, we are the first fully licensed seaweed farm in Washington State. And why did we do that? Well, so the seawater in the Salish Sea is starting to have some issues with acid levels, CO2 levels, and the problem with that is that there's many, but one of the biggest ones is that shellfish are unable to grow their shells, both crustacean like clam or like crab and shrimp, or mollusks like clams. In those cases, if that continues and the acid levels continue, it'll wipe out the shellfish population in the region. And seaweed will sequester CO2. Our hope is that we can be kind of the people to show people the way to create a bigger industry here for shellfish, or for shellfish, but for seaweed. And seaweed is a novelty on the coast here. As I said, we're the first ones in the state. There's a couple more farms now that are being developed, all of which are going to do great things to help clean the water here. They also provide cover for forage fish and for young salmon on their way out to sea. And ideally, we can, if we can show people how this seaweed farm can work and create a method for selling that seaweed as food source, as fertilizers, as various other sources, even healthcare items. We believe we're on the front edge of this, and believe that this is something for this region to build upon. And what Riley has done when we got together 5 or 6 years ago, when started talking about this, reef net fishing is something that takes place between July and September, the end of September. But we can grow seaweed from November or December and harvest it in April. It provides a secondary source of income for the reef net fishermen that can become seaweed farmers and going right over their same sites. And I know very few are being used right now, but there are hundreds of sites that were used by the Salish people here for centuries that could be reused for this very purpose of both reef net fishing and seaweed farming.
Well, today's a big day. It is World Oceans Day, and folks, if you want to take a small action today and support the work that the Wave Warriors are doing, you can either make a donation via the button that is right underneath this video, or you can join our Wave Warriors Club, and expect to see more of us throughout this month for it's World Ocean Day, and it's Orca Action Month. But we'll be popping up with some of these live sessions. And if there's somebody out there that you feel is kind of embodies the spirit of a wave warrior, somebody who is putting action in to try and improve not just this region but beyond, we'd love to talk to them. So we would love to get them on our show. We'd love to champion them. So definitely reach out and nominate a wave warrior. But gents, I'll give you the final words. What would be your message to folks on this day?
Join us. Help us. We have a lot of work to do. It doesn't take a lot from individuals, but combined efforts from a lot of people can make this thing happen very easily. Very easily. So we appreciate having the opportunity to be here today.
And what I would say is that this is not a theory. This is real. Take a look at where we live and what we're trying to protect. This is an amazing resource that you, no matter who you are, where you are, you can come to this place, Salish Center for Sustainable Fishing Methods, and see it, touch it, smell it for yourself. So we hope that you do join us.
All right. Thank you, gents, and thank you everybody for tuning in. Do share this video. Do tag folks who could use to learn a little bit more about the Salish Sea. But we're the Wave Warriors, and thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you.